Yennefer was hiding from a man who'd broken 3 of her ribs and promised worse, while across the courthouse, a crime lord faced execution from his business partners if he didn't produce a wife immediately. Hyun-woo Kang grabbed Yennefer from the courthouse hallway, whispered that he'd seen her running and knew she was desperate, then dragged her into a room full of criminals who expected a wedding in 2 minutes. If she said no, she'd go back to being Derek's punching bag. If she said yes, she'd belong to a man whose hands were stained with more blood than she could imagine. What happens when desperation makes you say "I do" to a stranger who's more dangerous than the monster you're running from? You're about to find out. Yennefer's hands shook as she pushed through the heavy doors of the Manhattan courthouse. Her heart pounded so loud she could hear it in her ears. Behind her, somewhere in the crowded New York streets, her ex-boyfriend was hunting her down. She'd seen him at the subway station just 10 minutes ago, and she'd run like her life depended on it. Because it did. She ducked into the first hallway she found, her small suitcase bumping against her leg. People in fancy suits rushed past her, lawyers and couples and families, all too busy to notice one terrified woman from Senegal trying to disappear into the walls. She pressed herself against the corner, breathing hard, praying he hadn't followed her inside. A door flew open next to her, and a woman in an expensive white dress stormed out, her face red and angry. She was screaming into her phone in a language Yennefer didn't understand, her heels clicking fast as she marched toward the exit. Yennefer watched her go, confused, until someone grabbed her arm. She gasped and spun around. A man stood there, the most beautiful man she'd ever seen in her life. He was tall with sharp cheekbones, dark eyes that seemed to see right through her, and black hair styled perfectly. He wore a suit that probably cost more than everything she owned, but it wasn't his looks that made her freeze. It was the dangerous energy rolling off him, like a tiger pretending to be tame. "You," he said in a smooth, deep voice with a slight accent. "You're perfect." "What?" "I don't know you." Yennefer tried to pull away, but his grip was gentle yet firm. "I need you to trust me for the next 5 minutes," he said, his dark eyes locking onto hers. "That woman who just left was supposed to marry me." She changed her mind. "But I have a room full of people waiting inside. And if I don't get married in the next 3 minutes, very bad things will happen. Business things. Dangerous things." Yennefer's mind raced. This was insane. She should run, but something in his eyes made her pause. He looked desperate, yes, but also powerful, like someone who could protect her if she needed it. "I can't just marry a stranger," she whispered. "I saw you hiding," he said quietly. "Someone's chasing you, I can tell. You're scared. Marry me right now, and I'll make sure whoever you're running from never touches you again. I promise." Her throat went tight. How did he know? Before she could answer, voices echoed down the hallway. She recognized one of them, her ex. He was inside the building, asking people if they'd seen her. Panic shot through her body. The stranger saw her face change and knew he had her. "Decide now," he said. Yennefer looked into his eyes one more time. She had no money, no plan, and nowhere to go. This stranger was offering her a way out, even if it made no sense. "Okay," she breathed. He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. He pulled her through the door into a beautiful room with wooden panels and tall windows. About 20 people in expensive clothes stood around looking annoyed and checking their watches. An older man in robes stood at the front, a judge maybe, looking very impatient. "Finally!" one of the men in suits snapped. "We've been waiting, Hyun-woo. Where's the bride you promised?" "Right here," Hyun-woo said smoothly, keeping Yennefer close to his side. Everyone, This is my bride. Sorry for the delay." The room erupted in confused whispers. People stared at Yennefer like she'd grown two heads. She wanted to sink into the floor. What was she doing? This was crazy. But Hyun-woo's hand found hers and squeezed, warm and steady. Somehow that one touch calmed her racing heart just enough to keep breathing. The judge cleared his throat. "Well, let's begin then. We're already behind schedule." Everything happened so fast after that. Yennefer stood next to this beautiful stranger named Hyun-woo and repeated words the judge told her to say. Her voice shook, but she got through it. Hyun-woo's voice was steady and confident, like he did this every day. When the judge told him to kiss his bride, Yennefer's eyes went wide. Hyun-woo leaned down, his lips hovering near her ear. "Just pretend," he whispered so only she could hear. "Make it look real." Then his mouth touched hers, soft and warm and completely unexpected. It was supposed to be fake, just for show, but something electric passed between them. Her whole body lit up like someone had plugged her into a wall socket. His lips moved against hers, gentle but firm, and for a second she forgot where she was. Forgot everything, except the way he tasted and the way his hand cupped her face so carefully. When he pulled back, his dark eyes were wide with surprise. He'd felt it too. That spark. That impossible, crazy connection. "I now pronounce you husband and wife," the judge said, sounding bored. The room filled with polite applause, but most people still looked confused and suspicious. Several men in dark suits approached Hyun-woo, speaking in low, threatening voices. He responded in the same language, his tone sharp and commanding. Whatever he said made them back off, but they didn't look happy about it. Yennefer stood there, her mind spinning. What had she just done? She'd married a complete stranger, a dangerous stranger who clearly had enemies. She must have lost her mind. "Come on," Hyun-woo said, taking her hand again. "We need to leave before they start asking too many questions." He led her out a back exit where a sleek black car waited. A driver in a suit opened the door and Hyun-woo guided her inside. The leather seats were soft as butter, and the car smelled expensive. As they pulled away from the courthouse, Yennefer finally let herself breathe. "Okay," she said, turning to face him. "You need to explain what just happened, right now." Hyun-woo loosened his tie and leaned back in his seat, studying her face like she was a puzzle he was trying to solve. "My name is Hyun-woo Kang. I run several businesses in New York, Chicago, and across the country. Some of those businesses are legal, some are not. The people you saw in that room are my partners. They wanted proof that I was serious about settling down, about being stable. It's complicated, but let's just say a wife makes me look more trustworthy to certain people." "So you just grabbed a random woman off the street to marry you?" Yennefer couldn't believe this was real. "Not random," he said. "I saw something in you. Strength, beauty, and fear. Someone's hurting you. I can protect you from them if you help me with this arrangement." Yennefer's hands twisted in her lap. "His name is Derek. We were together for 3 years. He said he loved me, but he hurt me. A lot. When I finally got the courage to leave, he started following me everywhere. I came to New York to hide, but he found me. I don't know how, but he always finds me." Hyun-woo's jaw tightened, and something dark flashed in his eyes. "He'll never touch you again. You're my wife now. That means you're under my protection. No one hurts what's mine." The possessive way he said mine should have scared her. Instead, it sent a strange thrill down her spine. She barely knew this man, but something about him made her feel safer than she'd felt in years. "What happens now?" she asked quietly. Now we go to my home, Hyunwoo said. We need to talk about how this arrangement will work. And you need to rest. You look exhausted. The car drove through the city, the tall buildings giving way to even fancier neighborhoods. Finally, they pulled up to a gorgeous building made of glass and steel. The driver opened their door, and Hyunwoo led her inside to a private elevator that required a special key. They rode up in silence, but Yennefer could feel the tension building between them. Every time she glanced at him, he was already looking at her. When the elevator doors opened, she gasped. His penthouse was stunning. Floor-to-ceiling windows showed the entire city sparkling below them. Modern furniture in blacks and whites filled the huge space. Everything was clean and expensive and intimidating. You can take the guest bedroom, Hyunwoo said, pointing down a hallway. It has its own bathroom. Everything you need should be there. Tomorrow we'll get you clothes and whatever else you want. I can't pay you back, Yennefer said softly, ashamed. I have almost nothing. I'm not asking you to pay me back, he said, moving closer. They were standing in the middle of his living room, the city lights casting shadows across his handsome face. You gave me what I needed today. Now I'll give you what you need. Safety, protection, a place to hide from your ex. That's the deal. She looked up at him, this stranger who was now her husband. Why do I feel like there's more to this deal than you're saying? A slow smile spread across his face. Because you're smart. Yes, there's more. But we'll figure it out as we go. For now, just know that you're safe here. No one gets past my security. No one touches you without going through me first. He reached out and tucked a strand of her hair behind her ear. The gentle touch made her skin tingle. She should step back, put distance between them. This was supposed to be business. Fake. An arrangement. But her body had other ideas. She found herself leaning closer to him, drawn by some invisible force she couldn't explain. You felt it too, Hyunwoo said, his voice dropping lower. When I kissed you in the courthouse. That wasn't fake. No, Yennefer admitted, her heart racing. It wasn't. His hand moved from her hair to cup her cheek. His thumb brushed across her bottom lip, and she shivered. The air between them crackled with electricity. He leaned down slowly, giving her time to pull away if she wanted to. She didn't want to. Their lips met again, but this time there was no audience. No pretending. This kiss was real and hungry and desperate. His arms wrapped around her waist, pulling her against his hard body. She melted into him, her hands gripping his shoulders for balance as the kiss deepened. Heat flooded through her. She'd never been kissed like this before, like she was the only thing in the world that mattered. His mouth moved against hers with skill and passion, drawing soft sounds from her throat. One of his hands tangled in her hair while the other pressed against the small of her back, holding her close. When they finally broke apart, both breathing hard, Hyunwoo rested his forehead against hers. This complicates things, he whispered. I know, she breathed back. We should keep this professional, keep our distance. We should. But neither of them moved. They stood there in the middle of his penthouse, wrapped in each other's arms, the city glittering below them. Two strangers who'd just gotten married. Two people who should have walked away but couldn't. Yennefer. He said her name like a prayer. You have no idea what you've gotten yourself into. She looked into his dark, dangerous eyes and knew he was right. She'd stumbled into something bigger than she understood. But for the first time in years, she didn't feel like a victim. She felt alive. Then show me, she whispered. His eyes darkened with desire, and she knew her life would never be the same. The private jet touched down in Chicago 3 days after the wedding. Yennefer pressed her face against the window, watching the city spread out beneath them like a kingdom of lights and steel. She'd never been on a plane before, let alone a private one with leather seats and a flight attendant who brought her whatever she wanted. Hyunwoo sat across from her, working on his laptop, his face serious and focused. He'd barely touched her since that kiss in his penthouse. They'd slept in separate rooms, eaten breakfast in polite silence, and now he was taking her to his estate in Chicago. The tension between them was thick enough to cut with a knife. "Why Chicago?" she asked, breaking the silence. He looked up from his screen, those dark eyes studying her. "Because that's where my main operations are. New York is for show. Chicago is where I really work. You'll be safer there. My security is better." The car that picked them up from the airport was even fancier than the one in New York. They drove through the city and out into the suburbs, where houses got bigger and bigger until they finally pulled up to an estate surrounded by tall iron gates. Guards checked them through, and Yennefer's stomach twisted with nervousness. What kind of businessman needed this much security? The house was enormous, more like a mansion from movies than a real place where people lived. Stone columns, massive windows, perfectly trimmed gardens. It looked like a castle. "Welcome home," Hyunwoo said, but his voice sounded tired. Inside was just as impressive. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, artwork that probably cost more than most people made in a lifetime. Staff members greeted them, taking their bags and offering refreshments. Everyone called Hyunwoo Sir and treated him like royalty. "Your room is upstairs," he said, leading her up a grand staircase. "East wing. Mine is in the west wing. There's an office, a library, a gym, a pool. Make yourself at home." He showed her to a bedroom that was bigger than the entire apartment she'd shared with Derek back in Senegal. A huge bed with silk sheets, a balcony overlooking the gardens, a bathroom with a tub the size of a small pool. "This is too much," Yennefer said, feeling overwhelmed. "It's yours now," Hyunwoo said simply. "Everything here is yours. You're my wife. What's mine is yours." "But we're not really married," she said quietly. "Not in the way that matters." Something flashed in his eyes. Hurt, maybe, or frustration. "We're legally married. That's what matters for now. The rest, we'll figure out." He left her alone to unpack and settle in. Yennefer sat on the edge of the enormous bed and tried not to cry. This was all so surreal. A week ago, she'd been running for her life with nothing but a suitcase. Now she was living in a mansion, married to a man who looked like he'd walked out of a magazine but talked like a crime boss. That night, she couldn't sleep. The house was too quiet, too big. She wandered downstairs around midnight, wearing a silk nightgown one of the staff had left for her. She found the kitchen and made herself tea, trying to feel normal. "Can't sleep either?" She jumped and spun around. Hyunwoo stood in the doorway, wearing black pants and nothing else. His chest was bare, showing smooth skin and defined muscles that made her mouth go dry. But what caught her attention were the fresh bruises on his ribs and a cut above his eyebrow. "What happened to you?" she gasped, setting down her tea. "Business meeting," he said casually, like coming home beaten up was normal. "It got a little heated." "You're hurt." She moved toward him without thinking. "Let me help you." "I'm fine." "You're bleeding. Sit down." Something in her tone made him obey. He sat at the kitchen island while she found a first aid kit under the sink. Her hands shook slightly as she cleaned the cut on his face. He watched her the entire time, his gaze intense and unblinking. "You don't have to do this," he said softly. I have people who patch me up. I want to, she said, dabbing antiseptic on the wound. He winced but didn't pull away. This is what you do? You go to meetings and get beaten up? Sometimes. I run shipping operations, real estate, investments. But I also control territories, protect interests. Make sure people understand boundaries. It's not always pretty. You're in the mafia, she said bluntly. I prefer to call it organized business, he said with a slight smile. But yes, my family has been in this life for 3 generations. I was born into it. She moved to check his ribs, her fingers gentle against his bruised skin. He inhaled sharply, but not from pain, from her touch. She could feel the heat radiating off his body, smell his cologne mixed with something darker and more masculine. Does it hurt? She whispered. Yes, he said, but he wasn't looking at his ribs. He was looking at her face. But not the way you think. Her hands stilled on his chest. They were so close now. She could see the flecks of gold in his dark eyes, the way his jaw clenched like he was fighting something inside himself. Hyun-woo, she breathed. We have rules, he said roughly. Separate bedrooms, no personal questions, just business. I know. If we break those rules, this gets complicated. I know. But neither of them moved away. His hand came up to cover hers on his chest, pressing her palm against his heartbeat. It was racing just as fast as hers. I haven't been able to stop thinking about you, he confessed, his voice low and rough. Since the moment I saw you in that courthouse, since I kissed you, you've been driving me crazy. Same, she admitted. I know I shouldn't. This is supposed to be fake, an arrangement. But it doesn't feel fake. No, he agreed. It doesn't. His other hand came up to cup her face, thumb stroking her cheek. If we do this, if we cross this line, there's no going back. You understand that? Her heart pounded so hard she thought it might burst from her chest. I understand. I'm not a good man, Yennefer. I've done things that would make you run if you knew. I hurt people. I make them disappear when they threaten what's mine. I'm dangerous. I know, she whispered, but I don't care. Something broke inside him. She saw it in his eyes the moment he stopped fighting and gave in. He pulled her face to his and kissed her with all the hunger they'd been holding back for days. This wasn't gentle or careful. This was desperate and needy and consuming. She gasped against his mouth, and he took advantage, deepening the kiss until her knees went weak. His hands moved from her face to her waist, lifting her easily onto the counter so they were at the same height. She wrapped her legs around him instinctively, pulling him closer. Your ribs, she managed to say between kisses. Don't care, he growled, his mouth moving to her neck. He kissed and sucked at the sensitive skin there, making her moan. Her fingers tangled in his hair, holding him close as pleasure shot through her body. His hands explored her curves through the thin silk nightgown, leaving trails of fire everywhere he touched. She'd never felt anything like this before. Derek had never made her feel desired, wanted, treasured. Hyun-woo touched her like she was precious, and also like he wanted to devour her whole. Bedroom, he said against her lips. Now, unless you want our first time to be on the kitchen counter. She laughed breathlessly. Bedroom sounds good. He lifted her easily, her legs still wrapped around his waist, and carried her through the dark house. They kissed the entire way, stopping only when he had to see where he was going. By the time they reached his bedroom in the West Wing, they were both breathing hard and desperate for more. He laid her on his bed gently, like she was made of glass. The room was dark except for moonlight streaming through the windows. She could see his silhouette above her, powerful and beautiful, and entirely focused on her. "Last chance to stop this," he said, his voice strained. "Once I have you, I won't want to let you go." She reached up and pulled him down to her. "Then don't let go." What happened next was like nothing she'd ever experienced. Hyun-woo took his time, exploring every inch of her body with his hands and mouth. He learned what made her gasp, what made her moan, what made her arch off the bed in pleasure. He whispered things in Korean that she didn't understand, but that sounded like poetry. When they finally came together, it was perfect and overwhelming and intense. She clung to him, her nails digging into his shoulders as waves of pleasure washed over her. He buried his face in her neck, groaning her name like a prayer. Afterward, they lay tangled together, their hearts racing and their bodies slick with sweat. Hyun-woo pulled her close, tucking her against his chest like he never wanted to let her go. "This changes everything," he said quietly. "I know," she whispered back. "I meant what I said. You're mine now. Really mine. Not just on paper." She looked up at him, seeing something vulnerable in his eyes that she'd never seen before. This dangerous man, this powerful crime boss, was letting her see the real him. "And you're mine," she said firmly. He smiled, and it transformed his entire face. "Yes, I am." They fell asleep wrapped in each other's arms, the rules they'd set forgotten. Separate bedrooms didn't matter anymore. Nothing mattered except the connection burning between them, stronger than either of them had expected. Outside, the guards patrolled the estate. Business would continue tomorrow. Enemies would still exist. Dangers would still threaten. But for tonight, in the darkness of his bedroom, they were just two people who'd found something unexpected and precious in each other. Something worth protecting. Something worth keeping. 2 weeks later, Hyun-woo announced they were going to Seattle for business. Yennefer had spent those weeks learning what it meant to be married to a man like him. She'd met some of his associates, learned to ignore the dangerous conversations happening in his office, and gotten used to the armed guards always nearby. But she'd also learned what it meant to be loved by him. Every night they fell asleep tangled together. Every morning he kissed her like she was his last breath. He bought her clothes, jewelry, anything she even glanced at. But more than that, he talked to her. Really talked. About his childhood in Korea, about taking over the family business, about his dreams beyond the criminal world. She told him about growing up in Senegal, about her family, about Derek and the abuse she'd endured. Hyun-woo listened to every word, his jaw getting tighter each time she mentioned something Derek had done. Once, when she described a particularly bad beating, he'd gotten up and punched a hole through his office wall. "I'll find him," he'd said darkly. "I'll make him suffer for every bruise he gave you." "No," she'd said, taking his bleeding hand in hers. "He's in the past. You're my future. That's all that matters." Now they were in Seattle, staying in a luxury hotel downtown. Hyun-woo had meetings all day with business partners, some legal, and some definitely not. Tonight there was a party at a fancy venue overlooking the water, and she was expected to attend as his wife. "Wear the red dress," Hyun-woo said, adjusting his tie in the hotel mirror. He looked incredible in his black suit, every inch the powerful businessman. "I want everyone to see how beautiful you are." She smiled and kissed his cheek. "You just want to show off." "Absolutely," he grinned. "You're the most gorgeous woman I've ever seen. Why wouldn't I show you off?" The party was overwhelming. Hundreds of people in expensive clothes, drinking champagne and talking about investments and deals. Yennefer stayed close to Hyun-woo, his hand possessive on her waist as he introduced her to various people. Some looked curious. Some looked suspicious. A few looked openly hostile. "They don't like that you married me," she whispered when they had a moment alone. "They don't like that I married someone they didn't choose," he corrected. "They wanted me to marry into another crime family, to strengthen alliances. But I don't care what they want. I chose you." The possessive way he said it made her heart flutter. She was about to respond when she noticed several men watching them from across the room. Something about the way they stared made her uncomfortable. "Hyun-woo," she said quietly. "Those men keep looking at us." His body tensed immediately. He followed her gaze and his expression went cold. "Stay close to me. Don't leave my side for any reason." "Who are they?" "Rivals. From a competing organization. They shouldn't be here." His hand tightened on her waist. "Something's wrong." Before he could say more, the lights flickered. Once, twice, then went completely dark. The room erupted in confusion and screams. Yennefer felt Hyun-woo pull her against him protectively. "Don't let go of me," he said in her ear. Suddenly, hands grabbed her from behind, yanking her away from Hyun-woo. She screamed his name as someone dragged her backward through the dark crowd. She fought, kicking and scratching, but whoever had her was too strong. Then she heard Hyun-woo's roar of rage, and everything changed. The emergency lights came on, casting everything in red. She saw Hyun-woo fighting like a demon, his fists connecting with faces and bodies. He moved with deadly grace, taking down one man, then another, then another. His expensive suit jacket was torn, blood on his knuckles, but he didn't stop. "Let her go!" he snarled at the man holding Yennefer. "Now!" The man laughed and pulled out a knife, pressing it against her throat. "Back off, Kang, or I cut her pretty neck." Terror flooded through Yennefer. She could feel the cold blade against her skin, could smell the man's sour breath. But Hyun-woo didn't look scared. He looked absolutely murderous. "You just made the biggest mistake of your life," Hyun-woo said, his voice deadly calm. He moved so fast Yennefer barely saw it. 1 second he was 10 feet away. The next he had the man's wrist in his hand, twisting until bones cracked. The knife clattered to the floor. The man screamed. Hyun-woo pulled Yennefer away and shoved the man to the ground. "She is mine. You touch her, you die. Tell your boss that. Tell everyone." Security finally arrived, along with more of Hyun-woo's men. The attackers were rounded up and dragged away. The party dissolved into chaos as people rushed to leave. Through it all, Hyun-woo held Yennefer close, checking her for injuries. "Are you hurt? Did he cut you?" His hands were shaking as he examined her neck. "I'm okay," she said, though her whole body was trembling. "You saved me." "I'll always save you," he said fiercely. "Always. No one touches what's mine and lives to talk about it." His men surrounded them as they left the building and got into a waiting car. Once they were safely inside with the doors locked, Hyun-woo pulled Yennefer into his lap, holding her tight. "I'm sorry," he said into her hair. "I should have been more careful. I should have protected you better." "You did protect me," she said, pulling back to look at him. "You were amazing. Terrifying, but amazing." Something shifted in the air between them. The fear, the adrenaline, the reality of what almost happened. It all crashed over them at once. Hyun-woo's eyes darkened with need and relief and possessive hunger. "I need you," he said roughly, "right now. I need to feel that you're alive and safe and mine." "Yes," she breathed. They barely made it back to the hotel room before they were tearing at each other's clothes. The red dress he'd wanted her to wear ended up on the floor. His suit followed. They stumbled to the bed, kissing desperately, hands exploring frantically. This wasn't gentle like their first time. This was raw and urgent and intense. Hyun-woo made love to her like he was trying to prove something, like he needed to claim every inch of her. She matched his intensity, her nails raking down his back, her teeth nipping at his shoulder. "Mine," he growled against her lips. "Say it." "Yours," she gasped. "Always yours." He flipped them over so she was on top, his hands gripping her hips as she moved above him. "I almost lost you tonight. I can't lose you. Do you understand? You're everything to me." Tears filled her eyes at the raw emotion in his voice. This dangerous, powerful man was vulnerable with her, real with her. "I'm not going anywhere," she promised, leaning down to kiss him deeply. "You're stuck with me." They moved together, pleasure building and building until they both shattered, calling each other's names. Afterward, they lay in a tangle of sweaty limbs and racing hearts. "I'm falling in love with you," Hyun-woo said quietly, his fingers tracing patterns on her back. "This started as business, as an arrangement, but it's become so much more. You've become so much more." Yennefer's heart soared. She'd been feeling the same way but hadn't known how to say it. "I'm falling in love with you too. Maybe I already have." He pulled her closer, kissing her forehead. "This marriage isn't fake anymore. You know that, right? This is real. You're my real wife, my real partner, my real everything." "I know," she whispered. "And I want to be. I want all of this to be real." They made love again, slower this time, tender and sweet. Every touch was a promise. Every kiss was a confession. By the time they finally fell asleep as the sun started to rise, everything had changed between them. What started as a desperate arrangement had become something neither of them expected. Something powerful and true and worth fighting for. And fight for it they would. Because Hyun-woo's world was dangerous, and tonight had proven that being with him meant being a target. But Yennefer didn't care about the danger anymore. She'd found something in his arms that she'd been searching for her whole life. Love. Real, passionate, all-consuming love. 3 months into their marriage, Yennefer had almost forgotten about her old life. She'd become comfortable in Hyun-woo's world, splitting time between Chicago, New York, and wherever his business took them. She'd learned to ignore the guns, the guards, the dangerous men who came and went from their homes. She focused instead on the man Hyun-woo was with her when they were alone. He was gentle and funny, and surprisingly romantic. He brought her breakfast in bed. He learned to cook Senegalese dishes just to make her smile. He held her during thunderstorms because she'd mentioned once that they scared her. He was teaching her Korean, and she was teaching him Wolof. They were building a life together, piece by piece. Which is why, when they arrived in Boston for a weekend business trip, she wasn't expecting her past to come crashing back. They were having dinner at an upscale restaurant, Hyun-woo's hand resting on her thigh under the table, when she saw him. Derek, her ex-boyfriend, standing by the bar, staring directly at her with cold, angry eyes. Her fork clattered to her plate, all the blood drained from her face. "What's wrong?" Hyun-woo asked immediately, alert to every change in her mood. "He's here," she whispered, unable to look away. "Derek, he found me." Hyun-woo's expression went deadly. "Where?" "By the bar." The tall man with the scar on his chin. Hyun-woo looked, and his jaw clenched so tight she heard his teeth grind. "Stay here. Don't move." "No, please." She grabbed his arm. Just let him leave. Ignore him. He doesn't get to look at you like that, Hyun-woo said coldly. He doesn't get to scare you. Not anymore. But before Hyun-woo could stand, Derek walked over to their table. Up close, he looked worse than Yennefer remembered. Thinner, meaner, with a desperate edge to him. Yennefer, Derek said, his accent thick. Been looking for you for months. Imagine my surprise when I heard you got married. To him. Leave, Hyun-woo said quietly, but there was a threat in every syllable. Now. Derek ignored him, his eyes fixed on Yennefer. You think you can just run away from me? After everything I gave you? You owe me. I don't owe you anything, Yennefer said, finding her voice. Hyun-woo's presence beside her gave her strength. You hurt me. You made my life hell. I left because I had to. And fell right into his bed. Derek sneered. How convenient. Tell me, does he know what you really are? Does he know you're just using him for his money? Hyun-woo stood up so fast his chair fell backward. He was in Derek's face in an instant, towering over him. Say one more word about my wife and I'll break your jaw. Your wife? Derek laughed bitterly. She's not really your wife. She's playing you. That's what she does. She's a liar and a user. Hyun-woo's fist connected with Derek's face before anyone could blink. Blood spurted from Derek's nose as he stumbled backward. Security rushed over, but Hyun-woo's men got there first, surrounding their table. Get him out of here, Hyun-woo ordered. Take him somewhere private. I'll deal with him later. His men grabbed Derek, who was shouting threats and curses as they dragged him away. The restaurant manager rushed over, apologizing profusely. Hyun-woo handed him a stack of cash, and suddenly, everything was fine. That was the power of money and influence. We're leaving, Hyun-woo said, helping Yennefer up. Her legs felt weak, her whole body shaking. Seeing Derek again had brought back all the fear and pain she'd been trying to forget. Back at their hotel suite, Hyun-woo paced like a caged animal while Yennefer sat on the couch, her hands trembling. I should kill him, Hyun-woo said flatly. For what he did to you. For scaring you tonight. I should make him disappear. No, Yennefer said quickly. He's not worth it. He's not worth you getting in trouble. I won't get in trouble, Hyun-woo said darkly. That's not how my world works. A knock on the door interrupted them. One of Hyun-woo's men entered and whispered something in his ear. Hyun-woo's expression went from angry to absolutely furious. What? Yennefer asked. What did he say? Hyun-woo dismissed his man and turned to her. Derek knows about my business, the illegal parts. He's threatening to go to the authorities unless you go back to him. Yennefer's heart sank. He's blackmailing you? Because of me? This isn't your fault. It is, she said, standing up. Tears filled her eyes. I brought this to you. I brought danger to your life. Maybe I should just go with him. Maybe that's the only way to protect you. No. Hyun-woo crossed the room in 3 strides and grabbed her shoulders. Absolutely not. You're not going anywhere near that man ever again. Do you understand me? I don't care what he threatens. I don't care what he knows. You are staying right here with me. But your business, your life, everything you've built, means nothing without you, he said fiercely. Don't you get it yet? You're more important than any of that. I'd burn my entire empire to the ground before I'd let him take you from me. She started crying then, overwhelmed by everything, by his love, by the threat hanging over them, by the impossible situation. Hyun-woo pulled her close, holding her tight. I'll handle Derek, he said into her hair. I'll make sure he never bothers us again. Trust me. What are you going to do? It's better if you don't know the details, but by tomorrow morning, he won't be a problem anymore. That night, Hyun-woo left for several hours. Yennefer stayed in the suite with guards outside the door, worrying and waiting. When he finally returned after midnight, there was blood on his knuckles and a cold satisfaction in his eyes. "It's done," he said simply. "He's gone. He won't bother you ever again." She didn't ask what he meant by gone. She didn't want to know. Instead, she threw her arms around him, holding him tight. "Thank you," she whispered, "for protecting me, for choosing me." "Always," he said, pulling back to look at her face. "You're my wife, my real wife, not just on paper anymore. You're my partner, my equal, my everything. Nothing and no one will ever take you from me." He kissed her then, deep and passionate, pouring all his emotion into it. She kissed him back just as fiercely, needing to feel close to him, needing to forget the ugliness of the past few hours. They moved to the bedroom, shedding clothes between kisses. But this time was different from the desperate encounter in Seattle. This time, Hyun-woo took his time, worshipping every inch of her body with his hands and mouth. "You're so beautiful," he murmured against her skin. "So strong. You survived him. You survived everything. And now you're mine." He made love to her slowly, tenderly, his eyes never leaving hers. Every touch was gentle, every kiss was sweet. He moved inside her with patient, measured strokes, drawing out the pleasure until she was trembling and gasping his name. "I love you," he said as they moved together. "I love you so much it scares me. You've changed everything for me." "I love you too," she cried, tears streaming down her face. But they were happy tears now, tears of relief and joy and overwhelming emotion. When they finally climaxed together, it felt like more than just physical pleasure. It felt like their souls were connecting, like they were becoming one person instead of two. Afterward, Hyun-woo held her close, their bodies still tangled together, their hearts beating in rhythm. "You're not just my wife on paper," he said quietly. "You're my wife in every way that matters. In my heart, in my soul, in my life. This is real. We're real." "I know," she whispered, running her fingers through his hair. "I feel it too. This isn't about the arrangement anymore. This is about us, about what we've become together." "I was so empty before you," he confessed. "My life was violence and business and nothing else, but you brought light into all that darkness. You made me feel human again." She kissed him softly. "You saved me. In every way a person can be saved. You gave me safety, protection, and love. You showed me what it feels like to be cherished instead of hurt." They lay awake for hours, talking and touching and promising each other forever. The threat of Derek was gone. The fear that had followed Yennefer for years was finally lifted. She was safe now, truly safe, because she had Hyun-woo, and he would protect her from anything. As dawn broke over Boston, they made love again, this time with the knowledge that their future was secure. No more running, no more hiding, no more pretending their marriage was just business. This was real. This was forever. This was love. 6 months after the wedding, Hyun-woo received a summons from his family. Not a request, a summons. They were meeting in Portland, and his presence was required. The tone of the message made it clear this wasn't optional. "What does it mean?" Yennefer asked, watching him read the message for the 3rd time. "It means they've finally decided to deal with our marriage," he said grimly. "They've been ignoring it, hoping it would go away. But we're still together, so now they want to intervene." "Your family doesn't approve of me." "My family doesn't approve of anyone they didn't choose themselves." He pulled her close. But I don't care what they approve of. You're my choice. They flew to Portland 2 days later. The meeting was being held at a private estate owned by one of Hyun-woo's uncles. Yennefer had never met his family before, and her stomach twisted with nervousness as they drove through the gates. "Stay close to me," Hyun-woo said, squeezing her hand. "Let me do the talking. These people are dangerous, even to me." The house was beautiful but cold, decorated in traditional Korean style with modern touches. Several cars were already parked outside, expensive vehicles that screamed wealth and power. Inside, about 15 people waited in a formal sitting room. Older men and women, all dressed impeccably, all watching Hyun-woo and Yennefer with calculating eyes. One older man sat in the center, clearly the leader, Hyun-woo's grandfather. "Hyun-woo," the old man said in Korean. Yennefer understood enough now to follow the conversation. "You finally come home, and you bring this woman." "This is my wife," Hyun-woo said firmly, also in Korean. "Her name is Yennefer. She deserves your respect." "Respect?" A middle-aged woman laughed coldly. "You married a stranger without our permission, without proper arrangements, without consideration for the family business." "I married the woman I love," Hyun-woo said. "That should be enough." The grandfather stood, his face severe. "Love is a luxury we cannot afford. You were supposed to marry the daughter of the Song family. That alliance would have strengthened our position, expanded our territory, secured our future. Instead, you married this nobody from Africa. You've embarrassed us, weakened us." Yennefer felt each word like a slap, but she kept her face neutral. She wouldn't give them the satisfaction of seeing her hurt. "Yennefer is not a nobody." Hyun-woo's voice was deadly quiet. "She is brilliant, strong, and brave. She survived things that would have broken most people. She's worth 10 of any woman you would have chosen for me." "You will divorce her," another man said flatly. "Immediately. We've already arranged your marriage to Song Mi-young. The ceremony will take place next month." "No." The room fell silent. No one had expected Hyun-woo to refuse so directly. "What did you say?" his grandfather asked, his voice dangerous. "I said no," Hyun-woo repeated, standing tall. "I will not divorce Yennefer. I will not marry anyone else. She is my wife, and that's final." "Then you leave us no choice," the grandfather said coldly. "You will be removed from your position. Your territories will be redistributed. Your accounts will be frozen. You will have nothing. And if you continue to defy us, you will be removed permanently. Do you understand what that means?" Yennefer's blood ran cold. They were threatening to kill him, his own family. "I understand perfectly," Hyun-woo said calmly, "and my answer is still no." He turned to Yennefer and switched to English. "We're leaving. Now." "Hyun-woo, wait," she said desperately. "You can't throw away everything for me, your position, your power, your family." "Watch me," he said, taking her hand. "I already decided. You're more important than all of this." "If you walk out that door," his grandfather called after them, "you walk out forever. There's no coming back. You'll be cut off completely. You'll lose everything we built." Hyun-woo paused at the door and looked back at his family. "I'm not losing anything that matters. Everything that matters is right here beside me." They left the estate and drove straight to the hotel. Once they were safely in their suite, Yennefer broke down. "You can't do this," she sobbed. "I won't let you give up everything for me, your whole life, your business, your family." "They're not my family," Hyun-woo said firmly, pulling her into his arms. "Not anymore. Family doesn't threaten to kill you for choosing love. Family doesn't treat people like business transactions. But your empire, everything you've worked for. I don't need an empire, he said, tilting her face up to look at him. I just need you. We'll start over. I have money they don't know about. Investments they can't touch. We'll be fine. More than fine. We'll be free. Are you sure? She asked, searching his eyes. This is a huge decision. I don't want you to regret choosing me. I could never regret you, he said fiercely. You're the best thing that ever happened to me. Before you, I was just going through the motions, doing what was expected, living a life someone else designed for me. But with you, I'm actually alive. I'm happy. I'm in love. That's worth more than all the power in the world. She kissed him then, pouring all her gratitude and love into it. He kissed her back just as passionately, his hands tangling in her hair. I love you, she said against his lips. I love you so much. I love you too, he said, more than I knew I could love anyone. They moved to the bedroom, needing to be close, needing to feel connected after such a traumatic day. Hyun-woo undressed her slowly, kissing every inch of skin he revealed. His touch was reverent, worshipful, like she was something holy. You're everything, he whispered as he laid her on the bed. My wife, my partner, my future. I choose you. I'll always choose you. He made love to her with a tenderness that brought tears to her eyes. Every touch was a promise. Every kiss was a vow. He moved inside her slowly, deeply, their eyes locked together as they became one. We're going to build something beautiful together, he said, his voice rough with emotion. Something that's just ours. No crime families, no obligations, no threats. Just you and me and whatever future we want to create. Yes, she gasped, pleasure building inside her. Whatever we want. Together. They climaxed together, holding each other tight, tears mixing with sweat and kisses. It was more than just physical pleasure. It was a celebration of their choice, their love, their commitment to each other above all else. Afterward, they lay tangled together, planning their new life. Hyun-woo would liquidate his legitimate assets, move money into accounts his family couldn't access, and they'd start fresh somewhere new. Maybe Denver. Maybe somewhere neither of them had been before. Are you scared? She asked, tracing patterns on his chest. A little, he admitted, but mostly I'm excited. For the first time in my life, I get to choose my own path, and I'm choosing it with you. They made love twice more that night, each time more passionate than the last. By morning, they'd made all their plans. They'd leave Portland immediately, start the process of separating from Hyun-woo's criminal enterprises, and begin building their new life together. As they boarded a plane headed to Denver the next day, Yennefer looked at her husband and felt overwhelming gratitude. He'd given up everything for her, his power, his position, his family. He'd chosen love over everything else. And she would spend the rest of her life making sure he never regretted that choice. 1 year later, Yennefer stood in front of the mirror in their Denver home, smoothing down her white dress. Her hand rested on her growing belly, now 6 months pregnant with their first child. She could hardly believe how much had changed in just 2 years. Hyun-woo had successfully transitioned all his operations to legitimate businesses. They owned several restaurants, a real estate development company, and invested in technology startups. The money was good, but more importantly, it was clean. No more looking over their shoulders, no more armed guards, no more danger. You look beautiful, Hyun-woo said from the doorway. He looked incredible in a new suit, his hair styled perfectly, his eyes soft with love. "I can't believe you're making me get married to you again," she teased. "Once wasn't enough." "The first time didn't count," he grinned. "That was an accident. This time is real. This time is because I love you more than anything in this world, and I want everyone to know it." He'd planned a vow renewal ceremony as a surprise, inviting their new friends from Denver and even a few trusted associates from his old life who'd helped them transition. It was small and intimate, exactly what they both wanted. The ceremony took place in a beautiful garden at sunset. Yennefer walked toward Hyunwoo on her own, no one giving her away because she belonged to herself now. She belonged with him by choice, not by accident or arrangement. 2 years ago, I grabbed a stranger in a courthouse and made her my wife, Hyunwoo said, his voice thick with emotion as they stood facing each other. It was the best accident of my life. Yennefer, you've taught me what love really means. You've shown me that there's more to life than power and control. You've given me a reason to be a better man. Today, I promise you again, but this time from my heart. I promise to love you, protect you, and choose you every single day for the rest of my life. Tears streamed down Yennefer's face. You saved me in that courthouse, not just from my ex, but from a life where I didn't know my own worth. You showed me that I deserve to be loved gently, passionately, and completely. You gave up everything for me, and I promise to spend forever making sure you know you made the right choice. I love you, Hyunwoo. I'll love you until my last breath. They exchanged new rings, these ones chosen together with love instead of desperation. When the officiant pronounced them husband and wife again, Hyunwoo kissed her like it was both their first and last kiss, deep and sweet and full of promise. That night, back in their bedroom with the door locked and the world shut out, they celebrated their new beginning. Hyunwoo was careful with her because of the pregnancy, but no less passionate. He kissed her belly, whispering promises to their unborn child. "I'm going to be a good father," he said softly, "not like mine, not cold and calculating. I'm going to love this baby the way I love you, completely, unconditionally." "I know you will," Yennefer said, running her fingers through his hair. "You're already a good man. You're going to be an amazing father." He made love to her slowly and tenderly, mindful of her body's changes but still showing her how much he desired her. They moved together with practiced rhythm, knowing exactly what the other needed, what the other loved. "You're everything I never knew I wanted," he whispered as they moved together. "My wife, my partner, the mother of my child. You're my whole world." "And you're mine," she gasped, pleasure building inside her. "My protector, my lover, my forever." They climaxed together, as they always did now, so in tune with each other that they moved as one person instead of two. Afterward, he held her close, his hand resting protectively on her belly. "Do you ever regret it?" she asked quietly. "Giving up your old life?" "Never," he said firmly. "I have you. I have our baby comin'. I have a business I can be proud of. I have everything that matters. The rest was just noise." She smiled and snuggled closer to him. "I love our life." "Me too. And it's only going to get better." They fell asleep tangled together, dreaming of the future they were building. A future with no violence, no threats, no secrets. Just love and family and peace. 5 months later, Yennefer gave birth to a healthy baby girl. They named her Ayanna, meaning beautiful flower. Hyun-woo cried when he held her for the first time, this tiny, perfect human they'd created together. As Yennefer watched her husband rock their daughter, singing softly to her in Korean, she thought about how far they'd come. From a desperate accident in a courthouse to this beautiful family, from strangers to soulmates, from arrangement to forever. The journey had been wild, dangerous, and passionate, but it had led them exactly where they needed to be, together, in love, forever. What did you think of Yennefer and Hyun-woo's journey from a desperate courthouse accident to forever love? Drop a comment below telling me your favorite moment from their story. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more spicy romance stories that will keep you hooked until the very end.